All right, my friends, welcome back to All Cars. I am John. It is time for another Motorweek retro review reaction. This week it is the 1988 Merkur Scorpio. In a decade filled with bad decisions, this ranks right up there. So I'm interested to see what they say. I have a lot to say about this one, but I'm interested to see what Motorweek says about this of a car that was about to be canceled.
Motorweek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com.
In the 80s, sedans from Europe have become more popular than ever. That's why Ford started importing their German-made XR4 Ti. To do that, they created a whole new division named Merkur. Despite the public's ravenous appetite for cars from Europe, though, the Merkur XR4 Ti hasn't sold very well. But Ford isn't about to give up yet. They're just introducing another Merkur model, a 5-door, 5-passenger sedan, and it's called the Scorpio. It's bigger than the XR4 Ti and more expensive. So will this Scorpio be the German Ford that makes Merkur a household name?
Well, the answer is no. And the XR4 Ti was, as I recall, a 2-door hatchback, roughly the same size as a Mustang. So to me, it's always been kind of the Ford Saab, honestly. And the story of Merkur is pretty interesting, and it's unbelievable to me. The company that came up with and had the guts to come up with the Taurus made these horrible decisions. So the first is that they saw people moving more towards the European idea of luxury. So instead of changing Lincoln, they decided to just create a new brand. And they imported it from Europe, from Ford of Europe, and it was the Sierra there, but they didn't use that name because, well, GM had the GMC Sierra and the Cutlass Sierra. So they imported a car and tried to sell it as more premium to compete with Acura and eventually Infiniti and Lexus. That was the intention. But it never really worked. And they were hit by exchange rate problems. And by the fact that the car just wasn't, to me, upscale. It didn't look upscale. It wasn't competing with BMW and Mercedes. And they picked a name that was the German word for Mercury, and then made it part of the Lincoln Mercury brand. So who came up with the idea that it should be Lincoln Mercury Merkur? The whole concept was ill-conceived at the beginning. And their answer was to bring out a 5-door sedan and hopefully boost up sales. Let's see what they say.
We answer that with a definite could be. The Merkur Scorpio has a lot going for it. Introduced in Europe last year, it was Car of the Year there. And as European sedans go these days, the Scorpio is pretty daring. The Scorpio's upswept rear end and semi-disguised rear hatch separate it from any German luxury sedan sold in America. The trouble is, conventional marketing wisdom says most people look down on upmarket hatchback sedans. Ford isn't too worried about that, though. They only plan to sell 15,000 Scorpios this year. And those few buyers will get one of the most versatile luxury sedans ever offered. Lift the low opening rear hatch, and you'll find a 60/40 folding rear seat. You can fold one side to carry long items and keep the other for passengers, or fold the bottom seat cushion for flat station wagon-like cargo space. There's a lot of usable space in the Scorpio, and that's quite an achievement considering this is a rear-drive design. And while many German sedans have stark, brooding interiors, the Scorpio's is almost plush.
But before they go on there, styling. It's a little dowdy. And part of the problem is that Ford introduced the Taurus. And the Taurus was a huge success. And then they introduced this. And so you end up with something that's more expensive, but looks like the prototype to the Taurus. Now, the hatchback, he's absolutely correct. Americans don't like hatchbacks unless you call it an SUV. And that's unfortunate because I don't love the front end. It's weak. It needs a better defined, more distinctive grille. The profile's okay. I love the hatchback configuration, and there's nothing wrong with the storage here. I really like what they're trying to do with this car. And again, it just kind of reinforces that. Feels like a Ford Saab to me. Let's look at the interior.
There is a real wood accent on the dash, and this Italian-looking leather upholstery, part of the optional touring package. The seats are supportive, if hard, but both adjust 16 ways. They use seat-shaped adjustments, a myriad of knobs, and Ford's familiar blow-up bulb for lumbar support. If you still can't find the right driving position, the steering column telescopes as well as tilts, and the signal and wiper stalks rise and fall with the wheel. The wheel itself houses cruise control buttons, and all other controls are grouped within easy reach on the driver's dash pod. Light controls are on the left, and if you order the Touring package, a simple-to-use 4-function trip computer goes here too. Switches for the automatic climate control are on the right, and they're not as straightforward as they could be, but are easy to master. The backlit gauges are large and clear, but there are no readouts here for oil pressure or volts. The rear seat offers electric tilt adjustment, adjustable head restraints, and shoulder belts. There's plenty of legroom here too, and much better than average headroom. Interior...
You know, overall, my opinion of this car is, and I've got a comment at the end. Stay to the end. Here's how I'll know. Let me know if you agree with me at the end here. But this is such a mix, because parts of it look great. Those seats look fabulous. 16-way adjustment. Everything, the gauges are super clear, right? Fake wood. But then buttons to select the fan speed. It's kind of a mess of ergonomics, in my opinion. But plenty of space, it looks like. There's a lot about this car that I feel like it was conceived great, but the execution leaves a little bit to be desired. Overall, I kind of like what I'm seeing. Let's continue.
Niceties include power mirrors and windows, central locking, and a 2-way electric sunroof that's also part of the Touring package. Intelligent novelties include a bright orange, easy-to-reach hood release that's located on the underside of the steering column.
Okay, so I was going to stop there and say something positive about why don't they make the hood release stand out. This happens all the time. I don't know if you've ever seen this. You know, I experience a lot of different cars, and the hood releases can be really hidden. Why not make them bright orange? Spend the, 3 cents to make it a different color. But then they said it's under the steering column. That's where I reach for the adjustment. Who came up with this location? That summarizes the car for me. It's brilliant and dumb.
There's also a rear wiper that starts automatically if the front wipers are going and the car is put in reverse, and a very difficult to duplicate ignition and door key, as well as an outside rear hatch release that locks when the engine is running to foil cargo theft attempts and traffic jams. And a pair of inside...
Is that an issue? I mean, honestly, we hear about carjacking, but I have never heard of somebody having their trunk opened while in traffic. That is news to me. Smart thinking, but I wonder if that doesn't come from the European design more than what happened in America. I don't know. That's weird to me.
Hatch closing grab handles. But the Scorpio's unique for a German car features are contrasted by this, a not-so-unique 2.9-liter V6. Its basic design dates back to 1964. It doesn't have 4 valves per cylinder or even a single overhead cam. It does have newly designed cylinder heads and multi-port fuel injection, and it makes a respectable 144 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. To its credit...
Now, hold on, before they give the test results. Part of the problem with bringing these two cars to America was meeting emissions standards as well as safety, and so they had to put on 5-mile-an-hour bumpers at the time. But this engine it's very dated. And when you're looking at competing with BMW and Mercedes and what Acura was doing, bringing this, the only reason they chose it was because it met emissions standards. That's it. They had nothing better to offer. One of the downsides. But let's see how it performed.
The engine is fairly smooth and delivers power without much fuss. It pushed our Scorpio through the quarter mile in a respectable 17.7 seconds at 81 miles per hour. The Scorpio can be had with either a 5-speed manual or this optional 4-speed automatic. Ford figures most drivers will opt for the latter, although its maze of safety shift notches is tiresome. Our car had the automatic and still made it from 0 to 60 in a quick 10.2 seconds. And the Scorpio stops even better than it goes. Like most cars in its class, the Scorpio has anti-lock brakes. They make it possible to retain steering control under full brake pressure. Brake pedal feel and control was excellent in our car. Its average in 6 stops was a short 108 feet. And just about all of the Scorpio's controls feel good. Its rack and pinion steering has a variable ratio. It's fairly slow for good stability at high speed, and fast for deeper cuts of the steering wheel. Body roll is more than we expected, as the Scorpio's suspension feels softer than those in other German sedans. On the switchback...
Okay, before they move on, so much to talk about there. Hate the gated shifter. I really do. And the worst part was that as they moved it through, the whole piece of plastic was shifting around. Just, that not giving you that premium quality feel, right? And 0 to 60 is pretty impressive. That braking, that's pretty impressive. But I talk about during the slaloms, does a car look like drama? And they said it's softer than other European German cars. A lot of drama there. A lot of squealing and leaning and just not impressive. I really wanted to start this video with, here's a gem that everybody missed. It's fantastic. And we all missed the boat on it. And I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling it right now.
The tail hangs out more than some will like, but it snaps back under power. Control is very good. In a steady turn, the Scorpio just plows mildly to tell you when you're going too fast. Rear-wheel tracking is obedient. And the Scorpio also rides better than many German sedans, but it still retains that solid but isolated feel. It's also fairly quiet, generating only 67 decibels at 55.
No, and I would say that is probably the highest praise I've heard so far, that it is controlled yet quiet. That's what you want, and that's what I respect. Honestly, that's what makes it feel Germanic to me in a lot of ways. That comment was pretty impressive.
PA rates the Merkur Scorpio at 17 city, 23 highway. We managed a figure of 20 in normal driving. As for more important figures, the Scorpio will set you back $23,200. Add the touring package and the damages come to $26,500. That's comparable to some Audi 5000s and thousands less than many other better-known German sedans. To make the Scorpio even more tempting, Ford guarantees that a 2 to 4-year-old Scorpio will retain the same percentage of its resale value as a Mercedes-Benz 190. So value tops our list of hits, followed by interior luxury, utility, and well-thought-out novelties. We also are impressed with the Scorpio's track performance and its highway ride quality. On the miss side, we regret the Scorpio's lack of instrumentation and its awkward climate control switches. And while we're at it, the automatic safety latch shifter is awkward to use too. Speaking of safety, the Scorpio passes with halogen headlamps, radial tires, 5-mile-per-hour bumpers, and rear seat shoulder belts. It only fails to have front passive restraints. From a marketing point of view, the name Merkur has been a Ford faux pas from the beginning. Some speculate it's the reason for the XR4 Ti slow sales. But the Scorpio, with an outstanding combination of features that aren't available on any other German-made car, should be a marketing success, despite having a first name that most car salesmen still can't pronounce.
Really, really fascinating. There's a lot to unpack there. So again, that's a really good looking interior, honestly. Those seats look super comfortable. The name, I understand what they were trying to do. It's the German version of Mercury, but even saying there that the salesman need to be able to pronounce it, and then you wrap it into Lincoln Mercury, and then here you add something else that sounds kind of similar, and you've got traditional, and here you are European, and this is supposed to compete with Mercedes, BMW, and upstarts like Acura at the time. I don't see it. Horrible decision, horrible naming, and if they were serious about it, they would have spun it off into a different brand, and they would have had more than one car and then two cars. And the problem is, they say they're talking about the safety, and they said a failure that it didn't have any passive restraints. Well, part of the reason that Merkur was canceled was because of new American standards for passive restraints. They weren't going to be required in Germany, so they would have had to re-engineer the car in, I think, 1990, 1991, something like that. And the sales didn't justify it, so they ended up just canceling the whole thing. A very interesting car, and an example of Americans, to me, wanting to kind of compete with the Germans, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, because they're there, but not really diving into it to truly make a competitor. In this case, they just kind of brought something from Germany, their largest car, and said, here you go. Maybe it's a competitor for Saab, maybe for Acura, but I ask anyone, look at this car, look at the styling, the performance, the engine technology, and tell me what an Acura or a Saab didn't do better. And that's the struggle here. It was just such a half-baked idea. So, cool review. I'm glad you're here with me, but I did say that this, I thought, would give me an idea for another video. I don't know if I'll do it or not. But we always hear, and I have for most of my life, for 30, 40 years, I've read people say, why don't they just bring these great cars from Europe? Why don't we just get the European cars? And the problem is that as I look at history, when we've brought European cars over here, they've almost always been a failure. Whether it's for reliability or weird ergonomics or noise or engine or price or whatever it happens to be, it's much harder to think of a European car sold in America that's a success, Volkswagen Beetle, than the number of European cars that have been sold in America maybe even under different nameplates that ended up really struggling with very low sales. I might investigate that. But for this, well, the writing was on the wall. The XR4Ti with its stupid name and its stupid louvers on the back led to this. A little bit bigger, a little bit nicer, boring styling that was eclipsed by the Taurus. Although better performer, I think. Honestly, I think it's a much more appealing package overall. Well, they canceled it, I think, the next year because sales were so poor and they didn't have the money to update it. And so Merkur went on to fade away and become the second shortest lived nameplate after Edsel. That's how much of a failure this was. Thanks for being here, guys. Let me know your thoughts below.